Welcome to the Flow State Podcast, where we're all about finding balance. We're your hosts, Monica Groney
and Nora Candido. Now let's get into the flow.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart: sleep, circadian rhythms. I am just a baby. I can sleep as much and as plentiful as I'd like. And we have our amazing guest, Anna, who is a functional registered dietitian nutritionist. She helps clients achieve optimal health and well-being through hormone balance, gut health, and food freedom. Anna, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. And this is also a topic very near and dear to my heart. I could talk about this all day long.
Amazing. So do you want to just share a little bit about your practice, how you got into this with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm a functional registered dietitian. This is actually my second career. So I worked in public relations for 8 years before I had my Saturn return when I was standing on a mountaintop in Machu Picchu and realized that I was not doing what I was actually put on this earth to do. So I got home, applied for NYU, and completed a 4-year program there to get my master's in clinical nutrition. Throughout that experience, I really realized that I wanted to be a much more proactive and preventative healthcare provider. So when I was in school, I started doing just my own research and education. I took Aviva Romm's functional medicine practitioner training. That's kind of when I fell in love with functional medicine. At the same time, I was undergoing my own health issues with SIBO. I was having menstrual migraines. I worked with a functional practitioner to overcome those. And yeah, once I graduated and got my RD credential, I opened my own private practice in Brooklyn. And I've been open for over 2.5 years now. And I love it. I'm like really just so lit up by what I get to do every day.
So amazing. That I didn't know that story about you, and that's just incredible. You've literally lived 2 lives.
Yes, I have. Yeah. It's never too late to go back.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Yeah, we took a class together. It was like an integrative nutrition class. It was like the only kind of woo-woo out there class that NYU offered. And Nora and I were both like moths to the flame with it.
It's so true. So true. It was telling. I'm excited because I love hearing you talk about this topic. I've had her come in and guest coach in my group program before too, because she is the circadian rhythm queen and I love hearing it. And it is so important for our hormone health. So I'd love for you let's pretend nobody's even heard of the word circadian rhythm before. I hope everyone has heard of it by this point, but can you just intro like what the heck a circadian rhythm, plural rhythms are? Where do we even get started on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of to back up a little bit, circadian rhythm falls under an area that is starting to get a lot more awareness called chronobiology. And that is the study of biological rhythms. So how things like our circadian rhythm affect us as humans and as mammals. So we have a lot of biological rhythms. I know, you both talk a lot about the infradian rhythm. So that's like the menstrual cycle. So an infradian rhythm is something that's longer than 24 hours. An ultradian rhythm is something that's less than 24 hours. So something like our focus cycle. We can actually only focus for about 90 minutes at a time. And then comes the circadian rhythm. Circa is like near, and then dia is day. So it's about a day. So, our sun, we rotate around the sun about every 24 hours. It's actually a little bit less. So that's why our circadian rhythm is a roughly 24-hour cycle. So it literally resets every single morning when you open your eyes and you get light into your eyes. And then it lasts throughout the full day. As the sun sets, it goes, all the way overnight. And then as soon as you open your eyes again the next morning, it resets again. So that is what a circadian rhythm is. Almost all mammals and plants on the earth have a circadian rhythm that is about that time because of the sun. It's just like how we evolved with, in sync with the sun.
And how does that interact? So you talked about like the hormonal cycle also being, obviously this plays a role in that rhythm as well, right? How does that kind of interact with each other?
Yeah, so you honestly can't talk about menstrual hormones or any hormones in general without talking about the circadian rhythm, because the circadian rhythm really is like your hormonal Big Ben. So our hormone production, fluctuation, the sensitivity of our cells to those hormones, the abundance of hormones in our body, those are all on this 24-hour cycle. So things like our HPA axis hormones, like cortisol, our growth hormone is secreted at night when we're in deep sleep, prolactin, thyroid hormones, insulin, and then our sex hormones. So, testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, those are all on a 24-hour circadian rhythm. So you literally cannot have balanced hormones or talk about balancing your hormones if your circadian rhythm is out of whack.
Yeah, and I've heard you explain things even, and I'm sure we'll dive into this in the sleep front, but of, the world that we live in, this modern world it's hard to support our circadian rhythm. There are so many things that influence them. And I think it would be helpful for our listeners to hear like what specific things are influencing that. When we're talking about this today, we're going to speak mostly to like the 24-hour cycle, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So unfortunately, the way we evolved is not matching up very well with the modern lifestyle that we're living right now. We have a big evolutionary mismatch is kind of the term that people are using for that. So we evolved to live with the sun and the moon. And we would wake with the sun, we'd spend all day outside, whatever we were doing, however far back you want to look, like hunting, gathering, walking, whatever it was. And then the sun would set, and that's literally the only source of light that you would have other than maybe fire or the stars or the moon, so you go to bed. Now we kind of literally do the opposite. We're inside 93% of the day. That's how much the average adult spends inside. Like, we get 1% of the sunlight coming in through windows. Like, it's not enough. And then as soon as the sun sets, we light our homes up like a Christmas tree. We turn our TVs on, we look at our phones, we're on our computers. Like, we're literally doing the exact opposite of what we should be doing, and it's wreaking havoc on our circadian rhythms. So knowing that, our circadian rhythms, they are housed in our Big Ben, which is deep inside our brain. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it's the size of a rice of grain, and a grain of rice, and it's 20,000 cells. And so it doesn't have access to the outside world. So it's dependent on something called peripheral clocks or clock genes to tell it what time it is. So these clock genes live in up to 80% of our cells in our body, but mostly it's light, temperature, activity, and food that really tell our circadian rhythm what time of day it is. So that's kind of what influences it. And when you think about that, it's really pretty easy to do things to support your circadian rhythm or to realize what you're doing that's sabotaging your circadian rhythm.
That's super interesting. It's like when you go camping, I don't know if anyone listening camps, but like you go camping and you're like, oh, it's dark out. Like, I guess we'll go to bed now. And that's kind of how we were meant to live.
Exactly.
And it's usually so refreshing too, because you're like, well, I'm going to go to bed early. I'll wake up early. Like, this is great.
Yep, exactly. That's literally how we were meant to be. We gather around the fire at night, and the firelight is a very warm amber light. Like, the light waves are not blue, they're red, and warm waves that help produce melatonin, help us produce melatonin. Whereas the sun produces these bright blue waves, and so that's where like blue light blocking glasses have gotten a lot of buzz lately. I literally put on a sunscreen the other day that says it blocks blue light. And I'm like, what?
Marketing.
Like, what? The marketing, greenwashing. It was a brand that I love too. It was a brand that I know you love, Nora. Anyway, and then we talk about wearing blue light blocking glasses, and people are wearing them all day long because they think that it helps with computer eye strain. And what they're actually doing is they're telling their brain that it's nighttime because they're blocking the blue light. The sun is the biggest producer of blue light. And so we want that blue light coming into our eyes starting first thing in the morning and throughout the day to tell our brain, to tell our suprachiasmatic nucleus what time of day it is. And then as soon as the sun sets, that's when you want to be blocking the blue light.
And same with like sunglasses too, right? I see people like the moment they step outside, they're like, oh, gotta put the shades on. It's like, no, you need that signal coming into your brain to say, stay alert, stay awake. Like, that's going to be helpful, and it's going to help your circadian rhythm, which is going to help your sleep, which is going to help your hormones, which is going to help your health, which like this compound effect, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's like we don't want to be going outside and staring at the sun. And if you're at the beach for 5 hours or you're like, on a road trip, then maybe put sunglasses on. But yeah, for a 20-minute walk in the morning, like you do not need sunglasses, you know, absolutely.
What else is really disrupting our circadian rhythm?
Yeah, so light. Let's just like talk through light really quick. So we want to be getting really bright light as soon as we wake up in the morning. So if it's dark, like I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, it's still dark. So I use a full spectrum bright light, like a sad light. And I sit in front of that for at least 20 minutes. Then you want to get as much light throughout the day. And then as soon as the sun sets, you think low and slow. So like no overhead lights. You want to be turning on like low, Himalayan salt lamps, candles, things like that. So that's light. We want it bright during the day and then dark at night. Food is another trigger. They're called Zeitgeibers. They're kind of these like, you know, timekeepers. They tell our body what time it is. I don't speak German, so I'm sorry if I mispronounce that. But the other one is food. And, our digestion is on a circadian rhythm as well. So our digestion really does slow down as we start to produce melatonin. It decreases our gastric juices. It actually does increase the kind of the rhythmic like squeezing of our digestive tract so that we can actually sweep through and digest food. But in terms of our stomach and our salivary glands, those really do slow down as night approaches. So you want to be eating you want to eat with the sun is what I say. So when the sun comes up, have a big breakfast. Sun is in the middle of the sky. It's at its brightest. That's why you want to have lunch as your biggest meal of the day. And then as the sun's starting to set for dinner, you want to have like a small meal. You don't want to be like grazing all day. And, ideally you're not having huge meals at 10 p.m. at night or like snacking at midnight. Obviously that's a whole other conversation if you have a restricted, history with eating. Or if you just weren't able to get enough food in during the day, it's totally fine to have dinner late at night. But ideally,
Or if you work at night.
yeah, or if you work like a shift worker, we can't talk about circadian rhythm without talking about shift workers. So we can definitely get into that. But food you really just want to be eating with the sun. When the sun sets, you want to kind of close up kitchen and let your digestion rest. The other one is temperature. So unless you have any questions about food.
I was just going to ask, I can't remember what I was reading recently, but I think it was mentioning like if you're waking up and you're not really hungry for a while in the morning, that could be a sign that your rhythm is off.
I 100% said that to you.
Oh, okay.
It was me.
Where did I hear this? Oh, wait.
It's not a great sign of like your overall, like you should be waking up hungry, right? Like that is a sign of your metabolism health. It can be your cortisol, the things that we're talking to relating to circadian rhythm. If I have people that wake up and they have no appetite or they even feel nauseous, that's when we're like, oh, we got some work to do.
Yeah, I think I have some work to do. I'm like never hungry in the morning, but that's definitely something, it's really interesting. I don't, sleep isn't hard for me, but I'm never hungry in the morning. So that's interesting to know that just the relation to food.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We really want to be eating like within an hour of waking to kind of tell our body what time it is.
I vividly remember, this like image from In the Flow, and it was like the 24-hour cycle, and it was talking about like, okay, our cortisol starts to rise around 5:30, which is what is naturally waking us up. Like, here's where you most average will have a bowel movement. Here's when it's best timing, you're most alert mid-morning to midday, and when your blood pressure might even be higher, when your core temperature. And I remember that visual just like really, really sticking in my head of there is a reason like we should do different things at different times in the day, and what happens when we don't listen to that and how that can really throw us off.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that image. I use an image a lot like that from traditional Chinese medicine that kind of has this concept that every organ and system in our body has a time. So like, the kidneys are at 2 a.m., the liver's at 4 a.m., so if you're waking up at certain times, maybe something's wrong there. And that clock also kind of incorporates those concepts. And that's where I struggle because I do want people to have food freedom. I don't want people to follow strict rules. So when it comes to following a clock like this, you're not following a mechanical clock. We're not saying that at 9 a.m. you always have to have breakfast. We're saying that at 9 a.m. your biological clock wants you to have breakfast. Like this is in your DNA and in your genes. Like our circadian rhythm, if you look at our chronotype, which is sort of the type of, it's hard to explain. So it's based on the length of your period 3 gene, and it's when your body wants to wake up or go to sleep. So if you've always been an early bird or you've always been a night owl, then that's your chronotype. And so we literally genetically and biologically want to be doing certain things at certain times. And unfortunately, I feel like in our modern lifestyle, we're just overriding that because of all the shoulds that we should be doing, intermittent fasting or whatever's trendy. So it's really not about following a strict schedule or a diet. It's really about tuning back into your own biology.
So if you are like a night owl, you should lean into that.
Yeah, that's kind of what the science shows. If you go to thepowerofwhen.com, there's a quiz and you can learn your chronotype. It's a new area of research, I would say, in the last like 15 years. And it's sort of like you want to understand your chronotype and then you want to sync your circadian rhythm with your chronotype. Like we're not all meant to wake up at 5:30 in the morning every single morning. Some people are meant to wake up a little bit later and stay up a little bit later. And you think about evolutionarily, we're living in a cave. Someone needed to keep watch at night while everyone else slept. So like we evolved to sort of have different rhythms. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I feel like so often we're shown like what we should do, and it's like go to bed early and wake up early, and so we're all like potentially pushing against what our body naturally wants to do.
Exactly. Like it's not you if you can't become a member of the 5 a.m. club. It's probably your genetics, or you're just not going to bed early enough. You can shift it a little, but it is important to understand that it's genetic.
This is the affirmation that Monica needed to stay up late. She's like, let's go.
It is. I've been a night owl my whole life. My mom would come in my room when I was a little kid and I'd just be up playing. And she's like, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, this is just me. Like, welcome. I'd be quiet in my room. And still to this day, my husband goes to bed super early. He wakes up super early and I am opposite. I could stay up until like 1 a.m. every night.
Yeah. It's one of the questionnaires I have my clients fill out so that I can understand what their chronotype is so that we can better customize their kind of routine making to their biology. Yeah.
Okay. We were going to talk about temperature in terms of how that disrupts and affects.
Yeah. So temperature is a little bit harder to kind of control because it's really your internal body temperature. So at night, like our internal body temperature drops and that's kind of what makes us sleepy. So it's really more thinking about like, okay, you don't want to be doing a really intense workout right before bed because that's probably going to raise your temperature a little bit and like you're not going to sleep. Or you don't want to be up and moving around in the middle of the night because that's activity and it's going to raise your temperature. So temperature really is more of an internal thermometer that kind of tells our body when to sleep. It's less of something that I tell people to focus on when they're trying to support their circadian rhythm. I usually like to focus more on light activity and food.
This is actually really interesting. So I wear a Whoop, and it detects its skin temperature. So but it's just like one of the data points. And mine this morning was like, your temperature is higher than normal. And last night I was laying in front of our fireplace that was on before I went to bed. And then I kind of slept like shit. And this morning it said my body temp was higher than normal. And I was like, weird, that like, I guess maybe it was from laying in front of the fire, but I feel like that would make sense now.
Yeah, that could be why. I mean, it's tricky. Temperature is tricky, and because you think about taking a shower or a bath before bed, why that works. When you get into something warm like that, your body has to self-correct, and then it drops your temperature when you get out of the bath, and so that's then what makes you sleepy. But something like sitting in front of the fire, you weren't engulfed in hot water, so maybe it raised your temperature and didn't necessarily like trigger that lowering effect.
Yeah. Wow, that's super interesting.
Love this. Okay, so we've kind of talked about, I think the other one that I really like when you speak to is travel, or like how our week schedule being off from our weekend schedule. I would love for you to chat on that.
Yeah, this is social jet lag. So we'll talk about jet lag with travel and then social jet lag. Obviously, we all have, flown across the country or in different time zones and felt really off. And that is your circadian rhythm being out of whack. So, when your body is used to thinking it's the sun rises at 9 a.m. and then all of a sudden you get on a flight and like 9 a.m. is now all of a sudden in the middle of the day where you are, your body can get very confused. And that can just make you feel groggy, get brain fog, little, GI distresses, things like that. Usually our body gets back on to the new time zone at about an hour a day. So that's kind of just something it's one of the perks of global travel now, is that we experience that. But what's really unfortunate is that a lot of people are giving themselves jet lag every weekend. This is called social jet lag. So if you're going to bed at 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then the weekend rolls around and you go to bed at 2 a.m. and you sleep in until like noon the next day, by Sunday night, your body thinks that it's in a different time zone. And so you're trying to go to bed again at 10 and it's like, wait, but we went to bed at 2 nights in a row. So like I'm thinking it's, not bedtime yet. So that was me in my 20s. I was out till 4 a.m. in New York partying on every weekend, and then I'd try to go to bed early during the week. And that inconsistency is not what your circadian rhythm wants. Our circadian rhythms thrive on consistency. So going to bed and waking up around the same time, like within an hour every night.
Yeah, and I feel like too, when, on weekends like that, I know in my 20s, it wasn't just the sleep schedule changing, but it was like also the eat schedule changing. You're adding alcohol in, like all of those things, I'm sure play some kind of role.
Absolutely.
I feel like this is a perfect transition. So, outside of trying to go to bed around the same time, waking up around the same time, what are some other really tangible things that people can do to support their circadian rhythm?
Yeah, so thinking back on the light. So the moment you wake up, you open your eyes in the morning, you want to get bright light into them. So whether that's a bright spectrum, a full spectrum light, you want at least 10,000 lux, or going outside and getting some sunlight in your eyes right away. And then getting as much light during the day. So sitting by a window if you can, going outside without sunglasses for lunch, something like that. And then also watching the sunset can kind of help prepare your body for like the transition into night. Drinking water before coffee, like this is a hashtag that I'm going to make happen. Water before coffee. That was the only reel that I had that went semi-viral. I explained the benefits of this, and Nora mentioned earlier that our cortisol starts to increase around 5:30 in the morning, and so we want cortisol to be rising naturally the first like hour and a half of your day, because that's what's going to wake you up naturally. If you reach right for the coffee when you're waking up, then the coffee sort of artificially raises your cortisol. Not to mention if you're drinking coffee before you have breakfast, then that also can raise your cortisol. So it just messes with your cortisol's diurnal rhythm. So drinking water for like at least an hour and a half before you have caffeine. The other thing is to only wear blue light blockers at night if you have to be on your screens and computers. Do not wear them during the day. The American Academy of Ophthalmology does not recommend blue light blockers for computer eye strain. They've done a lot of studies and they say it doesn't help. So anecdotally, if it helps, then go for it. Just make sure you're taking them off when you go outside and you're still getting light. Fasting overnight, so like a circadian fast. This isn't a 16-hour fast. I'm literally talking about like 12 hours. So finish dinner at 7 p.m. and then have breakfast at 7 a.m. the next day and give your digestion that time to rest. And then we all know we should be going screen free for like at least an hour before bed. And that's because of the blue light. So those are sort of the main and easy things to do throughout your day that I feel like you don't even have to think about once they become part of your routine, that will really support your circadian rhythm.
Yeah, one of the things that you talked about recently too, I think it was in your Thrive challenge, was seeing the sun go down. And I definitely heard like go outside, get sun in your eyes when you wake or when the sun's coming up. But I think that was really interesting to kind of like, and it's just so good for our mental health to take a pause and be like, oh, look how pretty this is. It's usually pretty like beautiful, and is a really nice part of the day to go outside. But that's something that I've definitely added in recently is thinking about like, oh, the sun's going down. I should take a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just such a nice way to bookend your day. It's like sunrise, sunset. If you are up enough, early enough to watch the sunrise.
The one I like the no screens an hour before bedtime, and I also add like an hour when you wake up, trying not to go on your screens first thing in the morning too with the cortisol. It like actually changes our brain waves and can put us right into that kind of fight or flight mode where if you ease into the day, you have a little morning routine. You have your breakfast, then you have your caffeine, and then you settle in and start working or check your email or check social, whatever it is. Trying to give your body that time in the morning too, I think is so important.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that checking social first thing in the morning just puts you in this like reactive mode that is not good for your rest of your day. Like creativity goes out the window. You're just feeling like shit about yourself. I sleep with my phone in my office actually, and I don't pick it up until I like come to my desk for the day. So it's like it's my favorite thing. I have an alarm clock, like it's just it and the alarm clock is the light that like gets brighter. So it's like I have a sunrise every morning in my bedroom when it's dark. I think that's like my favorite routine. It's just no phone in the bedroom. My husband still sleeps with his in the bedroom, and I don't like it.
Yep, same. Yeah, I put mine in my office drawer before bed. I love it. Yeah.
So much goodness. I think one like really big question that is inherent when we talk about sleep is melatonin. And I think there's a lot of like maybe myths or everyone thinks they should be taking melatonin. People, it's over the counter, so you're just willy-nilly-ing it. I would love to hear kind of your stance on it, just in general. Is it something that you recommend? Why or why not?
Yeah, such a good question. There have been a lot of articles lately about melatonin, and I'm glad that it's getting a little bit more awareness because it's definitely being overused in the US. It's a hormone. We're literally taking a hormone that's over the counter. I believe that the US is the only country that you can take melatonin without a prescription. People are starting to give it to their children. Like it's just, I think it's getting a little overused. I am supportive of it if it's used kind of correctly under supervision and if you're using a very high quality melatonin supplement. So I recommend melatonin if you're traveling and you're jet lagged and you just like really need to get some sleep and you want to get your body back on the new time zone that you're going to be on, then I recommend like literally starting with just zero point 0.5 milligrams. Women, there's been a lot of research of women undergoing IVF that it can be beneficial to take melatonin supplements leading up to egg retrieval and then into the transfer. On the flip side, though, you do not want to use melatonin if you are trying to conceive naturally because it can affect your ovulation. It's been shown to do that. So,
Wait, that's so interesting. Can we talk about that? Like why for IVF but not for natural?
melatonin is a beautiful hormone. In addition to making us sleepy, it's also a really powerful antioxidant, an anti-inflammatory hormone. So, when it comes to egg quality, it's all about anti-inflammatory and antioxidants. So that's kind of the thinking is that it's really going to make the quality of your eggs much more, just high quality for that egg retrieval, along with a lot of other supplements that we don't need to go into. But that's kind of one of the reasons.
I think the biggest difference with like IVF is timed. So it's for the egg retrieval where like it's going to help boost the quality of the eggs, but if you're trying to conceive naturally and you're pregnant and then you continue taking melatonin, that's where it can mess with things. I think we talked about this a little bit in the customer Q&A episode because I was saying like the leading up to the preconception time period, it can be really important to help just boost the egg quality, like Anna was saying, but you don't want to be pregnant and taking melatonin. So it's tricky because you might not know that you're pregnant until you're really like 6 weeks pregnant, right? Like most people, you don't think anything's different unless you don't get your cycle. So that's why like I would do timing specifically around that.
So can be beneficial IVF, probably same for egg freezing too, because you want to freeze high quality eggs and then naturally, just because you don't want it during pregnancy.
Yeah, and it's been shown to kind of affect timing of ovulation
Okay.
because it's a hormone. You want everything just running the way that it should be. Yeah. So, and unfortunately, people are using like 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams. So they're really overusing the amount of melatonin that people are taking. I've had clients who come to me and they're already taking 10 milligrams every night. And the only amount that's been studied safely is 5 milligrams. So I'm like, why are there even supplements out there that are 10 milligrams? I mentioned people are giving it to their children. And then also there was a study that showed that some melatonin supplements contained almost 500% higher levels of melatonin than was on the label. So it's a little tricky because our body, teeny tiny micrograms is what we're actually producing. So then when you give it like 5 milligrams, it's too much. So I'm supportive of it in, those careful areas that we talked about, but I really think it should not be a substitute for sleep hygiene and doing the things to support your circadian rhythm and doing the things to get your body producing melatonin naturally, because that's going to be so much more powerful for you than just taking an exogenous hormone.
Interesting. One of the things that I've been hearing about lately, and I actually have been including in my routine a little bit, and I'm just curious to hear your perspective on, is tart cherry juice, because it has like a natural ability to boost melatonin. What's the story?
This is so interesting. It's so funny. I literally saw an Instagram reel a couple days ago about this, and I'd kind of heard, inklings about it. I've come across it in my own research, but I've never really dove into it, and I did in preparation for this. And I wouldn't say I'm a convert. I haven't tried it yet, but the research is starting to be there. They're very small studies. So most of the studies that were mentioned in the articles that I read included like 20 people, and they drank 1 ounce of cherry juice 30 minutes before bed. And they did see elevated melatonin levels because tart cherry juice does contain melatonin. It also contains tryptophan, which is the amino acid precursor that we need to make melatonin. So, 20 people, okay. Another study had 8 people, but they were over 50 and they had chronic insomnia already. And they were drinking 1 cup, so 8 ounces of tart cherry juice in the morning and in the evening. And, Nora and I as dietitians are probably going, oh, that's so much sugar. These people might have been sleeping because they were just in a blood sugar coma. So it did improve their sleep time. So I think it's something worth trying out. I personally wouldn't ever recommend more than the 1 ounce before bed, probably mixed with something yummy to drink it with.
Yeah, I've been drinking it so I just do like a splash in my Maria at night, and it makes this I feel like you got to have some variety, so it makes it taste different. And Maria, for me, like the magnesium in it definitely kind of can ease me into my bedtime. So that's what I've been doing, and it's mostly just to like switch up the flavor of Maria. But I'm like, hey, if there's like a little extra boost for my melatonin in here too, that's great.
I make gelatin homemade gummies with tart cherry juice for like gut health, because it has the L-glutamine in it. It can be really helpful. And tart cherry juice is actually a really high source of what are called polyphenols, which is really helpful for this specific type of bacteria in our gut that's helpful to protect our gut health too. So I like tart cherry juice for that reason too, but I usually recommend people, one, we're looking for like 100% juice. We're not looking for juice cocktail or something that's added sugar. There's enough natural sugar in there, even though tart cherry juice or even cranberry juice can be bitter for some individuals, but using it like a concentrate, like we're talking about.
I love that. Yeah. And same with melatonin. It's like it shouldn't be used to overcompensate for bad sleep hygiene or for like being on your screen right up until you're going to bed. It's like focus on those basics first before you try to kind of add in other stuff.
Yeah. Awesome.
In general, though, like what are recommendations for how much sleep we should be getting in? Like, is this something that as we age, right, children need a lot more sleep than adults, and older people typically sleep more as well? What is that recommendation?
Yeah. Our sleep needs do change over our lifespan. So adults, aged between 18 and 65, we need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Any less than that, and also more than that, have kind of been associated with adverse health effects. So it's important to make sure you're getting enough sleep, and then also the quality of sleep. And we can talk a little bit about kind of what quality means, but yeah, children, I have a 2-year-old, so when they're newborn, they're sleeping like 12 to 17 hours a day. And then that goes down to about 10 hours a day when we're teenagers. And then, as I mentioned, by the time you're like 18, 19, 20, you're needing that 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Maybe once you're 65 and over, you can get by with like 7 or a little bit less. But for the majority of your listeners, like I would say the 7 to 9 hours is the sweet spot. And then you just want to make sure that you're getting the good quality of sleep too. So we can dive into that too.
Real quick before we dive into quality, I'm just curious if there's, or if you know of any differences between male and female. I mean, in my experience around males and females, like I feel like males can do with less sleep, and I'm just a sleepy human, and I think a lot of women might lean in that direction. Is there science behind that?
That is a really good question, and I don't know. I haven't come really across anything about that, but I do feel like most of my clients that are women need more sleep than their partners.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I'm just curious, but that's totally okay if you're unsure. But super interesting. In terms of the quality of sleep, I think this is something that's getting a lot more focus now with like the Aura Ring, the Whoop, and I almost think too much data sometimes. We're getting too much input and we're analyzing it way too much. I use my Whoop sometimes and not other times because of that reason. I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm well rested, and my Whoop says I'm not. Like, what the heck? And then you start to question it. So let's talk about quality.
Yeah, I mean, and that anecdotal story right there has literally been studied that people who are tracking their sleep will wake up feeling like they had a really good night of sleep, and then they'll look at their data and it'll say that they didn't have a good night, and then they literally feel tired during the day, even though they felt fine when they woke up. So I do think that there is, something about too much data. But yeah, I mean, we want to be focusing just as much on the quality of our sleep as the quantity. So we want to spend like 75% of our night in our REM sleep, or in our non-REM sleep, sorry. And the other 25% is in REM sleep. So, we want at least 13 to 23% of that 73 non-REM to be deep sleep. Deep sleep is like where the magic happens. All sleep phases are important, but deep sleep is where that human growth hormone is produced that we talked about. And then the REM sleep is kind of when you're dreaming. So that's when like your body is literally paralyzed other than your eyes and a muscle in your ear, which is very bizarre. And that's when you're dreaming. It's so that you don't act out your dreams. It's like a paralysis, other than people who sleepwalk.
I had mentioned this recently on social, but the nights that I have really high REM sleep, I'm like a huge dreamer. So like my REM is like always going on override. But the nights that I have a lot of REM sleep, I also kind of wake up tired because I feel like I've been up partying in my sleep all night. I don't know if there's anything to that, but I'm like, wow, like I was doing so much in my dreams last night, and I'll wake up and be like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, like our REM sleep is when the reason we have dreams that scientists think is to kind of help us process emotional things that happen in our life. That's why we have dreams about like ex-boyfriends from 15 years ago, because it's like we're still just processing these emotions. So I do think that can be a little exhausting, and it's probably also cutting into a little bit of like your deep sleep potentially. And the deep sleep is where like the glymphatic system in our brain is where it really just like washes out all the beta amyloid plaques and like cleans our brain. And so you might be cutting into your deep sleep a little, just enough so that you're not getting that like rinse and repeat cycle quite as much as you need.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about devices, and I know that there's like pros and cons to these sleep trackers. It can show you if you're getting enough sleep or too much sleep, that kind of side of things. But what else in terms of like, do you like when people have track their sleep, or do you think, like you said, it can be more harmful?
Yeah, I think it's a case by case basis. I think it's kind of similar to if clients come and they, with Nora or I being dietitians, and they want to like track calories or protein intake or whatever for a little while, just so they can understand what it feels like to eat enough. Because some people genuinely don't understand what it feels like to get enough sleep or to get the right quality of sleep. So I think it can be useful for a little while, depending on the person, so that they can understand exactly how much sleep they're getting, what their percentages are, and then they can kind of like optimize from there. So, maybe if they get off screens at night and, cut their caffeine by noon, they're going to improve their deep and REM sleep, and that's going to make them feel better. And then they can kind of ditch the trackers and just know what works for them. So I think it's like using the trackers if it's going to be helpful up until the point that it's no longer helpful.
I like data too, like a lot of us here, but I encourage people to look at it as purely what it is. It's just information. But if you're waking up and you feel good, you feel energized, you feel rested, you can't recall waking up in the night, like go based on how you feel versus what something says, right? Like we do tests, we do labs, we do things, but you have to look at that whole person. You can't just go based off of what a device or a report is saying about you.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
One of the last things I want to touch on is a lot of our audience is our moms. And Anna, you're a mom. And I think that sleep can get tricky. I'm not a mom, so I don't know. I had a puppy once and, that was hard, but not comparing motherhood to having a puppy, but the sleep, I can't imagine doing it long term. So, do you have any tips or thoughts on getting sleep when, it's just not a reality?
Yes, it's really tough. I'm not going to say sleep when the baby sleeps because I didn't really find that to be very helpful because I've never been very good at napping. But I think for me, what was really important, and I'm just like you, Monica, like I could sleep 9 hours every night if I really wanted. So having a newborn and having to breastfeed every 2 hours and just, I really had to understand that it's a season and that it's not forever and that I'm going to get through it and that I will sleep again. And that really helped just to kind of, plus you're kind of running on adrenaline those first few weeks. You're like so stoked about having this new little creature. But I would say that like go to bed as early as you can, because for most people, unless you're an extreme night owl, those early at night hours are much more high quality than later in the night. Because of the deep sleep. That's where we get the majority of our deep sleep is like the first couple of sleep cycles. The other thing is just like, where are the boundaries that you feel like you could set? So like, can your partner be on baby duty for one night a week and you can sleep in the guest room and like get a full night of uninterrupted sleep with your earplugs in? Like I've had clients who their kids are still sleeping in their bed when they're 8 years old, and they just recently kicked the kids out of the bed and are finally getting 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep a night, and they feel amazing. I've also had clients who still sleep with the baby monitor like on loud under their pillow, even though their kid is 4 and sleeping through the night, and it's sort of like, where are these boundaries that you can be setting? Because we have to fill our cup first, and sleep is one of like the best places to fill your cup as a mother or a parent.
Yeah, that's really good advice. The boundaries thing for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I get it. I'm always, I used to always sleep with one eye open like a dolphin and listening for phantom cries. And if your kid isn't a good sleeper, that's also really tough. So just getting support where you can, send the kids to grandma's one night a week so you can get a good night of sleep.
Yeah, that sounds like a vacation for some parents, I'm sure.
I think these tips have been amazing, and I so appreciate you sharing your insight and expertise in this area. And one of our favorite parts of the show is actually doing a little lightning round with our guests. So we'll ask you these questions just real quick. So we'll kick it off. What is your favorite form of self-care?
Reading, without a doubt.
I love that.
Yeah.
With that answer, I'm curious, is there a book that has had the biggest impact on you?
I would say In the Flow, but I know that that's been mentioned a lot already today, but that was an incredible book. Probably the Circadian Code by Sachin Panda. He's literally a chronobiology researcher, and he talks a lot about circadian rhythm, and that's really just what opened my eyes to this as a concept. Like, we didn't learn this in school, and learning that our body runs on these rhythms from a cellular level, it blew my mind. I was like, this is the area I need to go into. So I would say that one.
Oh, super interesting.
being a dietitian, I know it can often be assumed that everybody loves to cook, which is not true. But do you have a favorite meal that you enjoy cooking?
Yeah, I would say it's just my go-to. It's like every Sunday night, I want to cook salmon, I want to roast some vegetables, and I want to have some quinoa. And those are my feel-good foods. So it's like no matter how I'm feeling, what day it is, the cycle, what, phase of my cycle I'm in, those are the foods that just like feel really good in my body and in my tummy. And it's easy. So that would be my go-to.
This is a fun question for you, I feel like, especially, but are you more of a morning routine person or nighttime routine person?
I'm a huge morning routine person because I'm a morning person. Like literally by 8 p.m., I can barely wash my face and get into bed. But yeah, I'm a morning routine person and I switch it up. I don't really have the exact same routine every morning, but definitely drinking water for at least an hour before coffee, and then some form of self-care.
Hashtag water before coffee.
Water before coffee, hashtag. I like to pull cards. Maybe I'll do an exercise. If I need to, I can do a little bit of work, but I'm in a beautiful phase right now where Lily is sleeping in until 8 a.m. So I'm waking up at 5:30 and literally getting a whole day in before she wakes up. So I'm feeling very grateful for that.
Anything that you would like to share with our audience? How can they work with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram as Nutrition Squeezed. So you can connect with me there. I have a lot of circadian rhythm resources. I have a guide. If people are still using guides on Instagram, that's kind of where they're all saved. So they can connect there. And then I will send you a link that people can sign up and get a free masterclass that I've taught on how to reset your circadian rhythm. So a lot of stuff we've talked about here today, but some additional nuggets that might be helpful.
Amazing. We'll link that masterclass in the show notes. So definitely go and check that out. Anna, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. I know there's so many takeaways, and I'm going to be implementing some of these things in my life for sure.
I love hearing you speak always, and it's so nice having you and getting to see you. So thanks so much for coming on this show, and we will talk to you soon, and we'll see everyone back here next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.